Star Wars enthusiasts, welcome to April 23rd Star Wars Unlimited Locals Night over at Valkyrie Vault in Brownsburg, Indiana. If you guys are looking for a place to play some Star Wars Unlimited, check out Valkyrie Vault in Brownsburg, Indiana. Thursday nights, 6 p.m., $5 entry. And in this round one, you got myself playing Vader JTL Yellow against Tobias Red. Well, before we jump into game number one, let's just quickly discuss the decks. We all know what Vader JTL is, folks. If you never played in the JTL meta or since the JTL meta, you've been sleeping under a rock. Vader JTL Yellow is all about TIE Swarm. You're just playing a bunch of vehicles in space. You're swarming stuff. You want to put out the Clone Combat Squadron out so that then you could put the Vader on, and then you just punch your opponent in the face for games. So it's just basically a space-heavy deck. It got really only one good buff out of Lawless time, and that was, of course, the Black Sun Patroller, the 2/2 shielded, but that's really about it. It did lose some stuff from the rotation, but not really a lot of stuff. But nonetheless, it's still a very strong deck. It has some tops in this meta, and if you don't take care of it or you don't deal with it, it can basically get out of hand very fast, very quick, and deal enough damage to where you can win. And we got Tobias Red. We've already covered Tobias Red on the channel with our own deck, but anyways, it's just about using Tobias's effect of action, tap him, give your opponent a unit that you control, and then create a credit token. Then he flips 4/5. He destroys every unit that is yours, but you do not control, and then draw a card and create a credit token. So basically, the gimmick of the deck is just draw a bunch of cards, create credits, and then eventually win with aggressive negotiations. That is the name of the game for Tobias Red. That's pretty much actually the name of the game for almost all red decks right now in this format, is aggressive negotiations. I'm hoping that sooner or later we get to see a ban list for Premier that could actually ban out aggressive negotiations. I could see Condemn also being on that list just because it does have some pretty strong potential because of the way Condemn triggers and how kind of hard sometimes it is to get off. It isn't hard for a lot of decks because a lot of decks do run in their sideboard or in their main board upgrade hate of either like System Shock or Outer Rim Constable to deal with JTL leaders like Vader and like Boba right now. But yeah, or even deal with like Tobias, because when Tobias flips, he can even put an aggressive Sudden Ferocity onto him, and then he can become even worse for all that. But yeah, so I'm waiting to see it because right now it does feel like the meta is hyper aggro, so it really just turns into hyper aggro, the meta. But yeah, nonetheless, we're gonna have to kind of see how this game goes overall. Without further ado, let's get into game number one. So for game number one, I'm going first here. We're going to start off with a First Order TIE Fighter and then a Y-Wing into my opponent. And the opponent is going to go for a Toydarian Technician, again, the 2/3 that has Raid 1 and has Restore 1, which is really nice, really good. Again, Tobias Red is only going to ever be playing in yellow, blue, and red. It doesn't have access to Villainy, it does not have access to Heroic, but it doesn't really need to care about either of that or anything like that here. So anyways, we're going to go for a 𝐕𝐈𝐃𝐿 to give a shield token to the Toydarian here. We're going to go swing for a Y-Wing for 1 damage, Toydarian to deal 3 damage, and then I'm going to create a TIE Fighter token so that I can allow the First Order TIE Fighter to get its Raid 1 on the attach here. So anyways, my opponent is going to claim. I'm going to swing 3 damage there from that one, and then I'm going to go for a pay 1 of a I actually forget what that fighter's name is. That is, of course, the fighter from the Raid 1 fighter from LOF. I forget what it is. Anyways, Toydarian is going to attack again for 3 damage here, and then we're going to kind of have to see here. I'm going to go for the shuttle here, and I'm going to steal the Toydarian's shield token, and I'm going to put that all on Director Krennic, not that over Krennic's shuttle here, not that it really matters here. And then the 𝐕𝐈's going to swing for 2 damage here, and then I'm going to swing another 3 here for that damage here, and then we're going to go 4/5. We're going to go for Hana here, and then we're going to go for the Y-Wing swing, and then my opponent's going to claim initiative, and then I'm going to swing for 3 more damage points, create another TIE Fighter, actually 4 more damage point there, create another TIE Fighter. The problem is that Hana is now near impossible to, it's going to be definitely hard for me to kill. I don't actually remember if I'm playing air superiority in this deck, which would have been really nice to actually have here. So the Hana is going to swing in, it's going to be able to deal 5 damage because it has a Raid 2 here. And then we're going to have the Krennic shuttle attack here, and then we're going to go for 𝐕𝐈 attacking, and then we're going to go for the first order TIE Fighter attacking, then we're going to go for the 𝐒𝐍𝐉𝐎𝐾 attacking. As you can see here, we're just kind of trading bodies. The problem is I'm out of tempo right now, as we're going to go for the trigger of Tobias to then create a credit token and give me the 𝐕𝐈 here, which then means I'm going to get, my opponent's going to be able to get a shield token here as well. So I really don't have much of a way in here. I do have stuff like I do have bogged down in procedure. I do have, of course, Bagwell as well. So anyways, I'm going to go for the Vader to create a TIE Fighter here. And then we're going to go for the flip of Tobias to kill the 𝐕𝐈 and then draw one card. Then we're going to give it to 𝐒𝐍𝐉𝐎𝐾 another shield token, because again, on the 𝐕𝐈s, when defeated, you give your opponent a shield token here that you can utilize as well. So that will put my opponent up to 2 credit tokens as well. So I'm going to just figure out what I want to do here. I'm going to go for the clone combat squadron here for what I want to put the Vader onto. But unfortunately, this is pretty much going to be too much for me. That the ground has become out of hand, and there's no way for me to win it at all. Yeah, it really does suck, because Vader used to have the ability to kind of get a ramp going, especially with resupply. Then I could have actually flipped the Vader here to be a little stronger, where I could have flipped Vader to go on to the clone combat squadron, and then being able to deal a whole lot more damage on the attack with the clone combat squadron. So I'm just going to take the initiative here, because I have bogged down in procedure. So I'm just going to use it to try to hold that. We're going to go for 𝐒𝐿, which has a raid 4, and then we're going to go for a nimble that doesn't really do anything, just to pump up the 𝐒𝐿 by 1 more, burning a credit token for that. And then we're just going to use the remaining credit tokens to burn out for the 𝐒𝐿 fans. So yeah, the ground has now become impossible for me to actually deal with and all of that. But anyways, there's also a red strategy, so it means they do have, of course, the Outer Rim Constable to immediately deal with the Vader. So I'm going to go for a bogged down in procedure to show a yellow so I could rest 2 things here. I'm going to go for 𝐒𝐿 and Hana here, remove the 2 major attackers here. We do see my opponent does have Lost and Forgotten here. We're going to be swung for 3 more damage here and all that. So, I mean, I can go for a Death Space Skirmisher, allowing me to rest, of course, rest out Tobias there in the thing, and then we're going to go for aggressive negotiations, and that will be the game there, because that is 3 plus the 2 off the 𝐒𝐿 fan, and that is just the power of aggressive negotiations, and why forever, I will say. I'm not sure why we have yet to get that banned out of Premiere. I think it definitely would be helpful, because it would definitely allow a deck like this to have survived a little longer here, because if he didn't have it, he could have lost and forgotten the bomber off the battlefield to play more, but it could have been a little bit of a different game state, where I could have still flipped the Vader and still maybe have pushed for the game state, especially on the bomber, because if I had known he had, because at that point, with the aggressive negotiations, and all of that. Again, I was at 25, so I had to actually rest out the Tobias, because there's no way I could have survived the 𝐒𝐿 fan and Tobias swing and all of that, because I would have to have flipped Vader and all that. And again, I'm not being in red means I don't have the ability to immediately go for access to, 𝐿𝐶�𝐿. So that is something you could consider, like running red with him to get you access to 𝐿𝐶 in aggressive negotiation, because you could do it with the bomber, and if you have enough stuff like I do, you could go flip Vader under the ship, and then immediately go for 𝐿𝐶 to swing with that bomber, and that would have been a whole lot of damage, and would have been near death right there because of all of this. Yellow just gives you a little bit more control, and that's where he's played a lot of. I think red, especially for how this meta is going, might actually be needed because of the 𝐿𝐶 trigger. So just something to think about as we move into game number 2. Welcome, everyone. Game number 2. Here we go. Let's see how we're going to start off. We're going to start off with the Forged Starfighter. I have to remember the name, and then a 𝐕𝐈 on the other side. And we're going to go for, again, a first order. First order, of course, TIE Fighter as well. Again, it only gets to raid if I have a token on the board here, so it really is important for the Vader as well, and all of that. So we're going to kind of see what we want to do here on one side here. I'm just kind of checking. So anyways, we're going to go for a 𝐕𝐈 to attack the 2. Then I'm going to swing the 2 damage in from the 4 Starfighter. And then my opponent is going to be able to then tap 3 here. We're going to go for a stolen 8T hauler, and then I'm going to create a TIE Fighter token. Yes, no, those are blank tokens, but they're TIE Fighter tokens. I really didn't want to dig out of my collection my TIE Fighter tokens for this, because you produce so many as it is. I'm just kind of figuring out what I really want to do here. I'm going to go for the Stub Fighter, even though it kind of blanks out the effect. Just getting another fighter out on the board state is kind of really important here. I just kind of need to swarm my opponent with fighters in space, so where it becomes impactful, where it becomes very hard for them to deal with anything. I could have claimed the initiative there and then used the Snub Fighter, but I just don't think that's really important, because again, I need fighters. I need to swarm my opponent. I need to be swarming my opponent for bodies and just having those bodies be forcing my opponent to have to deal with my bodies and all of that, or outpace me in damage. So anyways, we're going to go swing at the first order TIE Fighter, dealing the 2 damage, because again, that's the biggest punching power right now on the board. I'm going to go for the Clone Combat Squadron, just because, again, playing it out early, I don't know, maybe if it's not playing out early, typically you like to play it out on turn 5 so that you can trigger the effect. Is we're going to go for a Hana onto the ground. I'm going to make another TIE Fighter token here, and then I'm basically going to have at least 3 more damage coming in from that. We're going to have the Veil be given to me so that a created TIE Fighter token, or a credit token, and I'm going to swing in for 3 damage here from the Snub Fighter and from that. And then we do have, of course, a nice Chancellor Palpatine. I already have a Chancellor Palpatine actually in my resources already here, as my camera quickly out-focused and then come back into focus. But what anyway is more important is that this Clone Combat Bomber is very big here, is we're going to kill off the Veil to then create a second credit token because of the Tobias. We are going to give a shield token to Tobias. Doesn't really matter if you give a shield token to Tobias or not here. And then we're going to go for a Sudden Ferocity. We're not putting it under the Tobias. We are going to put it off under the Hana. So here I wish I had Beguel, because I could have Begueled that back to his hand and basically gotten rid of that Sudden Ferocity for kind of nothing there. It kind of sucked. I just didn't see it. Anyways, we're going to then swing for a bunch of damage here. We're going to get swung for 8, and then Clone Combat Squadron is going to swing in for a bunch of damage here as well because of getting all the puffs. And then we're going to get hit with the Stolen AT Holo, and then I'm going to swing 2 at it. Here at this point, I probably, now thinking about it, instead of going after my opponent, I should have probably killed their AT Hauler here. So anyways, we're going to then swing a bunch of damage, make another TIE Fighter token, and then put down 2 Black Sun Patrollers here. And then my opponent, unfortunately, is going to actually, I will tell you right now, is going to very much get close to the win here, because I have it here. Because I can go Screeching TIE Fighters my first attack, knock off Hana's ability to gain and all that. So yeah, that is going to be the game. But what I could have done easily there and have actually survived is, if I had claimed the initiative and all of that, I could have gone Screeching TIE Fighter to hit the Hana, so that reduces the raid 2, and it would have pushed me to near death here. But yeah, if I had a way to survive, didn't have the aggressive negotiation, I could flip Vader, put this on this, and that's game right there with the Vader. Like I said, and then I had the Chancellor Palpatine in the in my resources, so I could have gone Chancellor Palpatine made 2 spy tokens, and my opponent would then have to go through them. Neither of his guys have the ability to just pass through blockers, so that would mean that at that point it would be just the Stolen AT Hauler. So there may have been a point where I probably should have claimed the initiative. Again, that's the problem when you're playing like a deck with aggressive negotiations, where do you take the initiative? If I had Beguel to get that Hana off the battlefield there, and then bounced away that and bounced off that Sudden Ferocity, I would have survived. But yeah, it kind of sucks. I do point it out to my opponent. I did have the Chancellor Palpatine and all that. But again, yeah, it's a really fun deck, and maybe Red's just better right now going into this meta, just because you get sent to 𝐂𝐍𝐍. So if you can get out the Clone Squadron Bomber and build enough of a board state like this, where you can go claim the initiative, flip Vader onto the Bomber, get the plus, get 2 more TIE Fighters, so you get a +1, another 2+2+. +2/+2 onto the Bomber because the extra 2 TIE Fighters, and then go send to 𝐂𝐍𝐍 to try to win the game from there, isn't all that bad of an idea, especially with aggressive negotiations. So you could aggressive negotiations the Bomber and make it even worse of a fighter to have in the sky, so that you can see that. I think, honestly, that's just kind of what it feels like in this meta, is like you got to run Red in this meta to even feel good about it. It kind of sucks, because I really just don't like that we're in this meta. This doesn't feel like a very, like, skilled meta. It feels more like who grabs aggressive negotiation first and then can put enough damage on your opponent so that you can kill your opponent off with aggressive negotiation. It doesn't feel like a good meta. It doesn't feel like it'd be a healthy meta. I mean, if Fantasy Flight can see that Jango Fett is a problem in Eternal, and then ban some of Jango's cards in Eternal, like IG-2000 and the War Juggernaut, because those 2 were coming out off of TDR, and then they just become a problem, especially War Juggernaut. If your opponent has enough guys on the battlefield, it just becomes a problem. So yeah, I don't know. I really, really don't know. I feel like it needs to be fixed. I feel like aggressive negotiation needs to get banned. And I don't mind Condemn. I think people will still put a bunch of upgrade hate into their decks because of JTL leaders, so there's still enough ways to get rid of Condemn off of guys. But I think aggressive negotiations just makes games really unfair and really unfun, because it really just turns into, did you have aggressive negotiations for the win? That doesn't feel like a meta that should be here. I think it definitely will have to probably be banned when we get support, because I think support turns into another type of aggressive negotiation and will turn certain decks really into just hyper aggro turbo decks. And while I don't think there's a mind to have a aggro, like hyper aggro meta, I just think it turns into people just playing cards, dealing with board states, and then just punching each other into the face. I don't think there's anything wrong with getting you into like an aggro punch face style meta. I think we get into problems with it as well, but again, I'm surprised we just don't have it banned. We have multiple PQs now, multiple top results where red is dominant. I'm just surprised that we just don't have a ban just yet. I'm not sure what Fantasy Flight is waiting for. We are, I think, we're coming up to maybe, we've been a month in the format, so we got a month worth of PQ data. I don't know why we're still taking a month's worth to get aggressive negotiations banned. But nonetheless, guys, you can let me know your thoughts down in the comments on the decks, on the gameplay, and your thoughts on aggressive negotiation potentially needing to get a ban to settle this meta into being a more diverse meta and all of that. And while you guys are commenting, do make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you notify when my videos go live for you. And we'll see you here next time on Mom Dragons TCG.